What's going on, guys? In this D2R playthrough, I'm hoping some beginner players will learn a thing or two and some experienced players will be able to give me some tips and advice, and hopefully they won't be too harsh. Now I'm starting a new game. I will be playing through normal difficulty on the new ladder season that started a week back, and I'm going all in and playing hardcore. So I have played before. I just downloaded the game again, thought I would participate in D2R's first ladder season. On the initial release, I got a hardcore character to level 79 and then ripped. So I'm gonna have another go at that. Now, by far, my favorite character to play is the Necro, especially the Summon Necro. I'd say out of the hundreds of hours I've played D2R, but mainly D2, 90% of that time was spent playing the Necro. So hopefully I can make more videos of other characters, but it will for sure be a learning experience. So let's jump right into Act 1. I will be showing most of the quest, a few good fights. This won't be a speed run, but I also won't be killing every single monster in sight. I'm not the best at editing, but I've tried my best to show the good stuff. I'll talk a little bit about my build. You'll find a lot of build guides out there, but the majority of them are softcore builds. I found the best way to start my build is just to straight up add points to summon Skeleton. Skeleton Mastery is good too, and I'd love to waste some points into Teeth, but it would be a waste. First quest is an important one, the Den of Evil. This awards me an extra skill point from Akara, and you just can't skip that. I recommend buying stamina potions because if you don't, you will be walking a lot, and that's just not fun. Also pick up anything valuable to sell so you can afford mana pots and stamina potions. With my stats, I just pour everything into vitality and occasionally will add points to strength so I can equip better gear. Here I'm off to kill the Blood Raven. This quest will reward me with a mercenary that will fight by my side. I'm not up to date with some of the changes that's happening in D2R, but I hear they're buffing up all mercenaries from every act. Sadly, the Blood Raven didn't drop anything great for my necromancer, but this early on, I'll take anything. I'm off to the Stony Field to kill my favorite blue-skinned unique. I'm feeling good, kinda like riding a bike again after many years. All it took was a slight moment of being distracted, and I was sandwiched in by Rakanish's minions and some goatmen. My mind was quickly racing, I used all my potions, I tried squeezing out, but I was really stuck between them. I considered escaping the game, but I thought, would that be cheating my viewers? I died, but it was only 13 minutes or so in. It's no big deal, but it really humbled me. By the way, I will be showing you all my deaths. I'm not embarrassed by it. Just know that I will hit that escape button and leave the game if I'm put in a similar situation. It didn't take long before I could avenge my own death. It's tough dying in hardcore, but it doesn't faze me too much when it's early on. I've always had great luck with Rakanishu. He usually drops me something I need, boots, belts, gloves, but not this time. I head back to camp to visit Akara and view Necro wands that I would love to be able to afford, but not today. So I keep questing. I go through the underground passage, I touch the dead tree, get the scroll, talk to Akara, touch the stones. Act 1 is such a breeze, but not in a bad way. I think if the game started in Act 2 or Act 3, this game wouldn't have been as successful. The Tristram quest may seem like just another quest, but I have to say when I first played this game as a kid, this was the quest that really submerged me into the Diablo 2 story. The updated graphics of Resurrected just enhanced all the nostalgia of playing the original game. I didn't want to die again, so I focused on the game and made sure my skeletons were at the front line doing and taking all the damage. I could skip the majority of monsters that I come across. It would save me time, but if I was worried about time, I would just look for a game in a lobby where someone could rush me. Taking it slow like this is refreshing in so many ways, and I enjoy leveling up at this pace. I didn't start the first day of the ladder season, so there's no rush, and even if I did, I'm not experienced enough to compete with the players that eat, sleep, and breathe Diablo. I always try and keep my character at full health because when some monsters die, they cast Frost Nova and I refuse to die that way. I finish clearing the pack of monsters and I move on to Griswold. My skeletons take him down pretty easily, which is great to see. Nothing good drops, so I talk to Kane, who will identify my items for free now and move on to other quests. The Countess is another quest you can skip, but I enjoy doing it since I've done it countless of times in higher difficulties, farming for runes and keys. A little tip is to always push towards the right of the map, and 9 times out of 10, it will lead you to the next level. I wasn't too scared of taking on the Countess. I invested 1 point in Clay Golem because bosses love focusing on them. I also invested 1 point in Bone Armor, something a lot of guides will tell you to ignore, but it has definitely saved me countless of times. The Countess dropped some starter runes for me, but the biggest takeaway was her treasure chest. A preserved head dropped. Do not miss out on these if you're a necromancer. This one was pretty decent, +1 array skeleton and +2 to corpse explosion, the skill that I'll be using later on. Definitely an upgrade. After this, I decided to do the Smith quest. I went to the barracks, beat him up, took his hammer, and gave it to Charcy so she could reward me by imbuing an item. I don't often take her up on that offer, but I thought I'd give it a shot with another preserved head I found, thinking it would make it better, but the reality is all the skills stayed the same, I just got different stats on it. This was something I could have avoided by spending a few minutes researching online, but it's not a big deal. Now I know. Nothing really happened in the cathedral, I just love this area. It haunted me as a child and still does a little something to me now. From this point on, I play a little more cautious. The chances of me dying here, I would say, are 10 to 15%. It would be a much higher percentage if I had rushed to get here and was lower in level. Some of the unique monsters have a super speed buff and can pounce on you pretty quickly, but my skeletons are plenty strong to take anything on. Andariel was next, and to my surprise, she wasn't that hard to beat. She dropped 3 things that I wore right away: the skull cap, heavy gloves, and a set item that increased my run speed. Oh, and free gems are great. And just like that, I was done with Act 1. I talked to my boy Warif, and before you know it, I was in Lutgolian fighting beetles and carrions. Always making sure I cast Bone Armor because that is the way. I really enjoy the atmosphere Act 2 has. The desert, the monsters, the NPCs, it just all feels really rich. I was making my way towards the maggot layer when I realized I had skipped over the very first quest in the sewers. It gives you a free skill point, so I couldn't pass that up. I find and kill Radamant, which is no problem for my skellies. I'm still using my Act 1 mercenary, even though I could get the Act 2 one. I'm pretty sure the Act 2 mercenary that I need is the one I get in Nightmare though. But she's killing it with a crappy bow I gave her. So after I kill Radamant, I head back to the main quest. I've got to head to the Halls of the Dead for the Herodric Cube. I won't have to do this part of the quest again in Nightmare or Hell. One thing that I find annoying about this build is just how badly I'm in need of constant mana pots. I have a point in Amplify Damage, which is a must for this build. It's only level 1, but casting it a couple times will drain my mana. A solution I'm yet to try is to invest a decent amount of points to energy, then reset my stat points later on when I have better gear. In my opinion, that's just a minor inconvenience with this build. Some complain about their skellies not doing enough damage and that it takes too long to clear an area. Next up we head to the maggot layer, which can be super frustrating for a summon necro. The pathway tunnels are super narrow and usually you can only depend on one skeleton doing damage. The mobs of beetles can be a bit dangerous if you're careless and trying to rush through the tunnels, especially in later difficulties. I just like to take my time and get the staff safely. The Maggot Queen is notorious for dropping the worst loot in this game, at least for me anyways. It's a pretty cool boss, and I lucked out and got to her pretty easily. This has to be in my top 5 for most frustrating maps in Diablo. After I get the staff, I head to the Claw Viper Temple. This one's pretty quick and painless. You deal with some snakes that can pose a threat if you run headfirst into a mob of them. But for the most part, you shouldn't have too much of a problem here. That is, of course, if you're at a decent level at this point. The gear that I'm wearing is stuff I found off of drops. It's nothing special. And you don't need anything special really, but you should try and replace lower level gear for higher level ones whenever you get the chance. Once you get the Viper Ammy, you're all set to use the cube to fuse the staff and Ammy together, and bam, you're on to the next quest. Here I found a decent wand upgrade from Drogden that will make my skellies stronger. I was able to afford it since I've been selling drops and picking up gold where I can. I head to the palace and make my way to the Arcane Sanctuary, another map that I'd add to my top 5 frustrating places in Diablo. But don't get me wrong, I love this game in its entirety. I wouldn't change how difficult or frustrating some things can be. I have 4 directions to choose from, and as always, I can never get it right on my first try. This map also has pretty narrow paths, and there are these lightning sentries that can kill you in later difficulties if your resistances are low. The boss here goes down pretty quickly, and his drop sucks, but later on in hell he will drop keys for you. Just like Tristram, these series of quests piqued my love and interest for this game. Traveling through portals into another dimension where time doesn't exist was mind-blowing as a kid. I'd really love to replay this game in an even slower pace, revisiting the stories told by the NPCs. I'm sure I've missed some stuff and it would be a great refresher. This area is also a great place to level up. I think I gained 3 levels by just setting out to find Duriel. I'd say this is the point where I would be bummed out if I ripped. I'm about an hour and a half in and it would just suck having to restart now. But at this point I have an army of skeletons. 8 strong skellies, so if I were to die from a mob, it would totally be my fault. As I get closer and closer to Duriel though, I do start getting a bit nervous. He has totally ignored my skeletons and golem and has one-shot me before. But that was when I wasn't a believer of bone armor. I'd say my chances of dying to Duriel within the first 5 seconds are 40%, and I don't like those odds. But hopefully he ignores me or my bone armor pays off once again. I could level up some more or try and find some gear upgrades to better my odds, but I'll pass on that. Lucky for me, I didn't lag and I had time to run away from Duriel's pointy little arms. My skeletons have had no problems up to this point and I really thought it was going to be the same with Duriel. But no, he packs quite a punch. There is a spell that's popular to use. It's called Iron Maiden. It basically hits him for what he's hitting. I'm sure it works, but I've never felt the need to invest a point there. I see my skeletons and mercenary draining his HP, but I'm also seeing a lot of my skellies going down with just 1 or 2 hits. So I don't risk it and summon a portal to get out of there. I summon more skellies and finish him off. That's another downside I hear a lot about the summon Necro, that you can only summon skellies off of dead corpses you kill. It doesn't bother me really. Duriel drops a decent armor for me. My eyes got really big when I saw that wand, but it was crap. My boy Mashif takes me further east to the jungles of Act 3. I tried my hardest not to be a hater, but Act 3 has to be my least favorite act. It feels like it takes the longest to complete, and the jungle feels like a maze that never ends. The monsters in Act 3 are pretty easy. My skeletons run through everything here. But let's take a look at my skill tree and see where I'm at currently. So basically every point has gone to raise skeleton, 3 to summon mastery, 1 to clay golem, bone armor, and amplify damage. The other were bonuses from items. I will definitely invest more points to corpse explosion later, but for now my mana is too low. I find this good weapon for sorcerers. It has good bonuses for fire, and I decide to keep it in case I make a fire source. So I continue through the jungle maze in search of the Flayer dungeon, again making sure I'm not being too careless by leading the charge into mobs of monsters. I've got to say that Act 3 has great boss fights. Mephisto and even the Travancore Council are in my top 10 boss fights, not only because they drop great loot, but it feels really intense fighting them. I finally find the dungeon and I make my way all throughout another maze to find Kalim's brain. Next up, I'm off to find his heart in the sewers. Around this time is where I feel a bit of relief, feeling as though I'm halfway done with Act 3. Again, I'm feeling pretty good and confident up to this point. My skellies are plenty strong. I'm so used to fighting alongside an Act 2 mercenary, it feels pretty good having a shooter by my side. I'd love to be able to find a better weapon than the crap she has on right now, but that's not going to happen this early on in the game. I get lucky and enter a sewer entrance that's right by the level 2 entrance. Again, I'm really struggling with mana, constantly having to pick up pots, but that's part of the early game struggle. Later on, I'm hoping I'll have items that will regenerate my mana super fast, or just give me a ton of mana to where I won't need to use so many pots. I finally get to the chest and take Kalim's heart. I'm that much closer to Act 3's final boss, Mephisto. Next up, I head to the Kurist Causeway, which only lasts about 10 feet, and I'm right in Travancore. This is funny right here because I decided to get the waypoint thinking it would be smart to have in case I die. I can just come back and use the waypoint, but this is hardcore, and if I die then I'm dead. I have to restart the game. I'm a bit nervous here. Anything can happen. I just know that if I keep my distance, my chances of survival are much better. I'm not sure if my skeletons, my army I should call them, will be able to withstand all the council members, all of them attacking, but they seem to be holding up, and I'm able to summon more skeletons while the other ones die. Having a stronger clay golem would be very beneficial. At this point, a level 1 golem just gets destroyed too easily. But all in all, I'm very proud of my little army. They held up nicely against the council. I fused the organs together with the flail, and now I'm ready to enter Mephisto's lair. The Durance of Hate. I pause here for a second, and I go into legacy mode a few times, thinking back how I played this game years ago, having a blast with all the time in the world, and now much older, still having a blast, but with less time. In this area, you have to watch out for these little pygmies, because they're pretty fast and can totally take you by surprise. It didn't take too long to reach Mephisto. I made sure I set up a town portal in case I needed to escape. I have a real bad experience with Mephisto. I had a high level character die from Blizzard that he got casted on. In the countless times I've killed Mephisto, I've never seen him cast Blizzard. At least I don't remember. But that was all it took for him to die, so this time I made sure to run along and not stand still. I was really proud of my army, taking Mephisto down without having to leave and summon more skeletons. Mephisto's soulstone dropped, and the other drops were nothing special, but I was able to upgrade my gloves and armor from it. It's always important to upgrade your gear when the opportunity comes. If this was softcore, I would be rocking stuff I found from the Den of Evil still, but I can't take my chances in hardcore. And just like that, I'm done with Act 3, and I'm on to the short and sweet Act 4. Here I have two things to worry about: the lightning clouds and fighting Diablo himself. Actually, the lightning clouds aren't that big of a threat in normal difficulty. However, in Nightmare and in Hell, having low resistance, they're so deadly you have to tippy-toe around them. My skeletons are plenty strong to handle everything in Act 4, with the exception of Diablo. Again, I could skip all these monsters, but I'd like to level up as much as I can, and my gear isn't all that great, so I'm hoping that I can find some upgrades along the way. I make my way to the outer steps, where I'll pick up my free skill point by killing Izul. Here's a nice little close-up of that. Nothing great drops as usual, but that's okay. I take my skeleton army to the Hellforge to destroy Mephisto's soulstone and get myself some crappy runes and gems. And that's it. I'm off to the River of Flame, then to the Chaos Sanctuary to face the big red monster. And it looks like I'll be able to level up once more before I fight him. Now, I've seen a few videos where players will face and beat Diablo, and they're only at level 5, and they do it in hardcore. Now these guys have memorized every movement Diablo makes, and they're always just one step ahead of what he'll do next. They're that good, and I am nowhere near that level. I'm at level 25, and I 100% recognize that I could die from Diablo if I get the tiniest bit careless. He can pretty much one-shot me, so I have to be stocked up on potions, and I will most likely need to resummon my skeletons multiple times. I open up all the seals and leave this one for last. Fighting this group of Venom Lords with their unique boss, Infector, usually lets me know how strong my skellies are. My golem is super weak, but that's understandable because he's only at level 1. I will be adding more points to him later so he can be more tanky and slow down bosses better, but for now, skellies are my priority. I could hang back and level up by 5 levels, but honestly, that won't make much of a difference with this fight, so I go for it fully prepared for glory or death. Within a few seconds of the fight, I realized I was not ready. My skeletons went down way faster than I expected, and something else came to mind. The curse Decrepify. It would slow down Diablo's attack significantly and let my skeletons last a little longer. Sadly, I did not have that skill yet. I knew I had to go back into town and summon another army. I just didn't think I'd have to do it more than once. I thought maybe I was too weak to face Diablo and considered making another game to level up, but I took the risk and decided to keep going. My rogue, my golem, my skeletons would all pretty much get one-shotted. I had to head back to town for another army. If Diablo regenerated his health over time, this game would be over. I noticed that even though my army was super weak, they did decent damage. The trick was to keep him distracted with my golem while my skellies slashed away. I was slowly making progress on defeating Diablo, constantly running back and forth, looking out for his inferno attack, and hoping he wouldn't cast his bone prison on me. I can't even begin to imagine having to 1v1 Diablo as a barbarian or paladin. Like I said, the summon Necro is pretty much all I know. I finally got him low enough, but I needed to go back into town and summon one last army. This was my 5th time doing so, and it was kind of embarrassing. The funny thing is, Diablo gets much easier for my summon Necro in Nightmare and in Hell. I came close to death right about the time I killed him. I reviewed it over and over and don't know what caused me to take damage. This is why it's so important to stay at full health in hardcore. Diablo dropped what appeared to be some potentially good items, an Unraveler's Head and a Necro Wand. Unfortunately, it was crap, but I am happy to have survived my battle with Diablo. At this point in the game, I would definitely find it a bit annoying to rip. I have to say, I also enjoy Act 5. It's a bit lengthy, but the story is far more captivating than Act 2 or 3. Well, I don't know about Act 2, but Act 3 for sure. I reach Shank and take him down pretty easily. I don't even remember all the rewards for each quest. Some are definitely skippable, but most of the quests are already on the way to the main one, so why not complete them? I know the Lazarus quest is pretty important because it lets you add sockets to an item. I remember buying the expansion pack and being disappointed that only one act was added. I know that the Assassin and Druid came with the expansion pack, but I was hoping to get a bit more. I made it to the frozen river and I opened a jar and I did not remember these surprise attacks from those winged creatures. Again, I'm happy that I was in full HP and I had my skeletons around me. I'm on my way to rescue Anya. Life is pretty good as a summon Necro here in Act 5. The only thing I have to worry about is Nilithak's corpse explosion and being AFK in the World Stone Keep. I keep thinking about how poorly I did against Diablo, and I'm wondering if I'll face a similar problem taking on Baal. Oh, I forgot about the Ancients, a group of warrior that I cannot take on lightly. I fight Pindle, he drops nothing, and then I head out to find and kill Nilithak. The strategy with him is pretty easy. Just keep your distance and make sure you're not close to any dead corpse when he casts CE. Once he's blown up all the bodies around him, he's pretty easy to kill. I have mixed feelings about Nail Attack. I love that I'm facing another necromancer that looks very similar to me. He even has corpse explosion, but I hate that he's betrayed his own people. It makes us necros look bad. I redeem my peoples and kill him, and as usual, nothing good drops. I shouldn't be too hung up on finding good items. The only ones worth getting happy over will start to show up at the end of Nightmare and Hell. But I do find these boots that make me run and walk faster. I make my way towards the Ancients, and I do get a little nervous. Personally, I have never died from them, but I have seen videos of people getting one-shotted by them. One of the Ancients has a leap ability, and they can ignore your army and just straight pounce you. I think running around and having bone armor can save me from being one-shotted though. Killing the Ancients always gives you enough experience to level up once, which I think is pretty nice. They don't drop any items. I always thought it would be awesome if they did drop some runes. Even crappy ones would be better than nothing. Around this time, I've grown a little tired of my Act 1 mercenary, so I swap her out for an Act 5 mercenary. It's not really her fault she sucks. Her gear is just as bad as mine's. But since I'll be getting the Act 2 Merce soon in Nightmare, I figured I should try testing out a Barb. Again, I don't know if they've been buffed yet. I just heard that there are talks about mercenaries getting buffs. I make it to Bale's Thrones and take out his first wave of minions. This really won't be a problem. I'm only going to struggle with the last wave of monsters, the dinosaur looking things. They have a ton of HP. But yeah, I'll be doing a lot of these ball runs once I'm done with normal difficulty. It'll just help me level up a lot and make Nightmare easier. At the end of the video, I will be going over my stats and where I allocated my skill points, basically just a little summary. I reach Bale and I'm thinking I should set up a town portal because I'm sure I'll have to summon more skeletons. But to my surprise, my skeletons are holding up nicely. I don't know if it has anything to do with Decrepify, but I'm just going to credit it as to why my skellies made it out alive. This new mercenary is also pretty tough. He should get a little credit as well. Sadly, he will have to get replaced in Act 2. I slain Bale and honestly I'm surprised with the drops. I didn't think this could drop in normal difficulty. The Avenger Guard is a part of the Immortal King set. I immediately think that I'm supposed to keep this Act 5 mercenary maybe just a little longer. I actually don't know if he can wear it, but he should be able to since he's a barb. This sword drops as well, which is perfect for the mercenary. And that's it. I ended normal difficulty at level 31. I completed just about all the quests. I slain some monsters on the way. All in all, it took me about 2.5 hours. My stats are pretty simple. No points to energy or dex, and about 35 points to strength, so I can wear better gear. The rest all went to vitality. And as for my skill tree, it's also pretty simple. All points went to maxing out Raid Skeleton. Added a few to Summon Mastery, 2 to Clay Golem, 1 to Golem Mastery, and Summon Resist. Eventually, I'd like to put some points in Revive, but honestly, adding more points to Corpse Explosion is more of a priority. Also, Bone Armor, can't go wrong with that. Your Bone Armor gets stronger if you add points to Bone Wall or Bone Prison, more so than adding it to Bone Armor itself, but that's endgame. So yeah, next I'll be rotating points between Corpse Explosion and Skeleton Mastery. And in the final tab, we have curses. Amplify damage is great. It's a must. Also, Decrepify. I'd like to add more points to amplify damage just so the radius would be bigger, but that's way later. As far as items go, there's really not much to say. It's all crappy things I picked up for other characters I might make. The best thing really is my collection of chip gems. It'll be useful for crafting or upgrading runes. I should move them all to a shared stash in case I die. This wand is also pretty good for a sorceress. Makes me want to make a fire source. Other than that, it's just all pretty much crap. Even this rune word that I made, the base is pretty low. Moving on to the gear that I'm wearing, more the same, nothing special. But I do want to go over it. What you're really looking for is a decent wand and a necro shield. That will add skill points to raise skeleton, summon mastery. I would even take amplified damage. For the rest of your armor, I don't know, you can't and don't really have to be picky. Not in normal difficulty anyways. I just try to upgrade my gear with monster drops. I did notice a difference between having no magic find and having 30 something magic find. Better things did drop for me. This video lasted way longer than I thought it would. I had a 12-minute video in mind, but thanks for sticking around. I definitely plan on playing him more, and I hope to upload more content.